All right, so one announcement that didn't make the worship guide, the announcements bulletin, whatever we call it. It changes from week to week what we call it, I think. But anyway, on the 24th of January, that's a Wednesday at 7:40, we'll be having a meeting with the parents of wayward kids. I'm trying to think of a better name for that, but right now that's what we'll go with. And just to meet, maybe hear a few stories, and hear some just ways that you may be able to reach out and help heal those relationships, help maybe bring them back to Christ or to Christ, and heal a relationship, things like that. But so that'll be on the 24th at 7:40. It'll be in your worship guide next 2 weeks. So to help remind you of that. So a while back, Time Magazine put together a list of the 100 most influential people in history. So as a pastor, I'm wondering, okay, where's Jesus going to be out on that list? And sure enough, he was number one. Because even if you don't believe he's the Son of God, you have to admit that his influence has changed our world to the point where every time you write down a date, now when you're writing down 2024 rather than 2023, it's a reminder that all of history has been separated from the time before his birth till the time after his birth. So the question that we ask, how did he have such an impact on this world? Now, it's easy for us looking back on it and seeing that, but it wasn't easy at all at the time Jesus lived. I mean, think about it. An impact by this guy who's had peasants as parents, who lived in the armpit of the world at that time, who never went to college, never ran for office, never had a title, never did anything that would look good on a resume, didn't have thousands of Facebook followers, wasn't TikTok famous or had a Snapchat or Twitter or X or whatever it's called now, didn't do any of that either. Instead became sort of like a penniless preacher who wound up dying a criminal's death on the cross. How did he have an impact on the world? Setting aside, of course, well, he's the Son of God. Okay, yeah, we'll give you that. But if we were to set that aside, and not if we were to set that aside, but if we were even also to take that into account, how did Jesus have an impact on the world? In other words, how did his deity play out? How did being a God-man play out and him change the world? And if you just read the Gospels, just through fresh eyes, you will see the way Jesus did this was one person at a time. One at a time. Someone would come across his path. Something would happen. He might just see someone out there, or somebody would come across his path, and all of a sudden he was just laser focused on that one person. His agenda set aside. What was going on around him just sort of faded back into the background. And he would focus on one person at a time. That's the way he did it. In fact, in Luke chapter 8, Jesus is returning back to Galilee. People were excited. He has a big crowd waiting on him, so he's returning back to Galilee. And as soon as he comes into that area, here comes a big crowd. But a man named Jairus comes out to him and says, "My daughter's sick. She may be dying. Can you come and heal her?" Jesus says, "Yeah, sure. Let's go to your house." And on the way to their house, what happens? Jesus just stops. And he says, "Who touched me?" The crowd thinks, did we do something wrong? You know, they feel like he's sort of accusing them. I say, no, we didn't do it. But here's what's going on. One of our trips to China, we pull up to an elementary school. And there was about 8 of us, and we're in these little taxis, which are motorcycles with a bench seat in back, basically, is what they are, 3-wheelers, be more descriptive of them. And so we get out, our team, I don't know exactly how many, I'm going to think it was about 8 of us at that time. And so we're getting out and we're making our way to the front of the school, which is sort of just right off the street and has a little cement courtyard to it. And we're walking through, and these kids come out. And all of a sudden, they see us, and they start gathering around us. And we're not all together. We're a little bit separated. And especially with the kids, some kids started gathering around this person, the next person walked a little bit. More kids would gather around them. And before you know it, every one of us has somewhere between 20 to 50 kids around us. You couldn't move. We're trying to go to the back of the auditorium to get to the entrance of the school, and you couldn't walk. It almost felt claustrophobic. And they're just pressed up against you, and you really could not move. And if I would at that moment said, okay, which one of you rugrats touched me? The Chinese teachers would go, what do you mean? They're all over you. What do you mean, who touched you? And that's exactly what Peter says to Jesus. Jesus, everybody's pressing up against you. What do you mean, who touched you? Jesus says, somebody did. I felt the power go out for me. And this woman who wants to go unnoticed, Jesus is not going to let her go unnoticed. Because he thinks right away, that's my one right now. And so she comes to Jesus trembling, terribly afraid, falls at his feet and says, it was me. Tells her story, how she'd had this issue with bleeding for 12 years, been to doctors, everything else, nothing would help. Thought if I could just touch the hinge of his garment, I would be healed. She touched it, she's healed. Jesus says, go in peace. Your faith has saved you. So here's the point. Here's where we're going in this series. Who's your one? Because see, if we're going to be followers of Christ, if we're going to have an impact the way Jesus had an impact, not only do we have to acknowledge God is working in people's lives, we have to be sensitive in us. What's God doing? Who's the one that God's put in front of us? Who's that person? We need to pray, God, give me eyes to see the one. Help me not to lose sight of them. Help me not to let them go by unnoticed. Because what Jesus does, this woman who would rather go unnoticed, he gives her his full attention. Going to Jairus' house? No. All the crowd, the pushing, shoving crowd? No, all that goes aside. And he focuses on the one. We read in the Gospels somewhere around 40 times where it says Jesus saw. And what usually happens in correlation with that is somebody's life is being transformed. Because he would see people. People wouldn't just go by unnoticed. He was always sensitive. Okay, God, who's the one? Who's the one you want me to focus in on? So what I want to do today is let's look at why. Why did Jesus, let's do it this way. What are things that we can believe, things we can put into practice, things that we can know that will help us affect the world the way Jesus did, that can help us be focused on the one? Because there's certain things we have to know, we have to believe if we're going to have that same mentality, if we're going to go through life saying, God, okay, God, who's my one? So number one, here's the first thing we have to believe. Everyone is lost without Jesus. Here's what we read in Luke. For the Son of Man has come to seek and to save the lost. Now, here's what we have to understand. If something is lost, if you say, I lost my whatever, the reason you're saying you lost that is because it's valuable to you. You don't go turning a house upside down looking for a rubber band or a thumbtack. Well, maybe the thumbtack, don't want to step on it. But you don't go turning the house upside down looking for stuff like that. I lost my paper clip. No. When you lose something, you're declaring it has value to you. You turn your house upside down looking for your passport, looking for your wallet. Why? Because it's valuable. Lisa and I got married on Saturday afternoon at 2 o'clock, and after the wedding was over, we hopped in the car. We headed down. We were on our way to the Gulf Shores, Alabama. We stopped in Baton Rouge for our honeymoon night. Now, so that's a several-hour drive from Shreveport, where we were at, down to Baton Rouge. We pull up to getting near the hotel, getting ready to go to the hotel. We thought, We're hungry. It's our wedding. But we're hungry. We don't want to go to the hotel, have some time together, go out to eat, then have to come back to the hotel. We want to go to the hotel. We want to stay there the whole night. So we say, okay, let's go rush and go get something to eat real quick before we go to the hotel. So we go in this little restaurant, and we sit down at the table, and I pull out my pocket this envelope full of cash that I had that was given to us, this most of our honeymoon money. And I set it there on the table, and you know where the story's going already. And so we get done eating, we get back to the hotel, and I go, where's the cash at? Where's the envelope at? I had left it at the table in the restaurant. Oh, you can't blame me for that. I had other things on my mind, okay? That's not like, oh, you're sort of dumb. No, I was preoccupied, okay? I run back to the restaurant. Where's that waitress? Where's she at? Who cleared our table out and had to find out what a cash? Oh, she went home. Oh, I bet she did. With a tip like that, yeah. You won't see her for another month. So I go to the manager. He goes, oh, yes. She came to me after you left with that envelope full of money, scared to death. That, to see that, and it just scared her. And so that's why she went home. She had to recover from, she just gave it to the manager and took off. She was just scared to death. The manager went into his office, opened up, said, I put it in my safe, opened up the safe, brought the money back out, and I looked at it. It's all there. Now, if that waitress had been there, I would have kissed her. Unless she was a cowboy fan or a cat lover. Other than that, I would have kissed her. But the point is this. That was valuable to me. And to declare something is lost is to declare that's valuable to you. We've been over this before. Everybody who you lay eyes upon is so valuable to God that He sent His Son to die for them. Everyone. It's what you learn in economics. The worth of something is declared by what it's going to bring. You can declare something's value by how much is it worth, how much you're willing to pay for it. You can put your house on the market for $5.4 million, but you find out what's worth at closing time, right? And everybody you lay eyes upon, everybody you lay eyes upon is so valuable to God that He sent His Son to die for them. Right now, you're surrounded by people of eminent worth to God. And you didn't see it, but just now, passing down 1845 here, Pine Tree Road, was a car that went by full of people who were so valuable to God that He sent His Son to die for them. And then you take this a step further. You tend to value that the people you value. Okay? You tend to value that the people you value. That's why you're nice to your mother-in-law. Wouldn't be otherwise. But because your wife, you're nice to you, that's why you're nice to your boss's kids. So how do you treat people who are so valuable to God that He sent His Son to die for them? My tendency is to treat people based on how valuable they are to me. But how do you treat people that are so valuable to God? See? How do you value the people that the people you value? And do you value them? See? So now I have a tendency to go, they're a jerk. They're a Trump supporter, or worse, they're a Biden supporter, or worse, they're a cat lover. But they're so valuable to God, that He sent His Son to die for them. You learn this when you're little kids. This is drilled to you when you're in Sunday school class, when you're this high. Red and yellow, black and white, they are precious in His sight. Yeah. So you need to be careful because you're going to leave here, you're going to go out to eat somewhere, and somebody's going to pull out in front of you, you're tempted to give them a one-finger salute or something, but just stop because you realize, hey, they're so valuable to God that He sent His Son to die for them. So be careful. How do you treat people that are so valuable to Him that God sent His Son to die for them? Jesus was asked this quite often. People couldn't figure it out. How come you hang around people that are so far away from God? Why do you do that? His answer was because they matter to God. Everyone is worth finding to God. You're not going to find somebody that God does not want to connect to. So Jesus trying to get them to understand, as he telling them stories that we went over a couple months ago. Man has 100 sheep, loses one. What does he do? Leaves those other 99, and he goes out until he finds it. Then he comes back and has a celebration with his friends. A woman has 10 coins, a dowry given by her dad. She loses one of those coins. She's not going outside with 9 coins. No, she's going to sweep the house, look under everything until she finds it. And when she finds it, she's going to call her friends and rejoice. A man loses his son. What's he going to do? He's going to keep looking until his son comes back home. Then he's going to throw a party. See, when God looks at people, when he looks at lost people, he sees it as significant loss to himself. And he searches. He's looking. And people are good at getting lost, aren't they? In this story, some are like sheep. They just get lost in their own stupidity. Teenager experience with drugs and alcohol, somebody flirts with another person at work, or they take something from the till at work or something like that. Just their own stupidity, people get lost. Sometimes they do it like a coin, just carelessness. There's no stupidity, it's just circumstances of life. A death takes place, a divorce, a move, just things that just happen. And people just will wander away from God because of that. A virus comes, a COVID comes, and people get out of church routine, and they just sort of, because of circumstances, because of COVID, now they just quit going to church, and they get lost. Some people are like a son. They just rebel. God, I know what you want me to do. I'm just not going to do it. Not going to live that way. But remember, the man didn't have one son. He had 2 sons. One son got lost in the pig pen. The other son got lost in the pew. One went to the far country. One stayed at home with the father the whole time, but was just as lost. Judgmental. Didn't have time for people that didn't do things his way. Someone who was so far away from God. How did he describe his relationship with the Father? All these years I've been slaving away for you. That's not a relationship. Difficult. His greatest fault was he sensed no fault. And here's where we come to that second thing that we have to know, that we have to believe if we're going to affect the world the way Jesus did and have a one. We're going to be looking for who's your one. If you're going to be looking for who's your one, we've got to realize everybody's lost and they are of value, immense value to God. And so should be valuable to us. And the second thing, remember what the Father said when he saw his son from a far way off? Jesus says in the story, he used this word, he said, and he saw his son a long way off and was filled with compassion. Oh. See, that's the other thing. If you're going to have a one, not only do you have to realize how valuable lost people are, you have to be willing to be filled with compassion. The older son, no, my life's all buttoned up. I go to church, I pray, I read my word, I'm okay. How come you're not okay the way I'm okay? See, it's easy for us to lose our compassion for other people. Easy. Just last week I was reminded of this. This is none of you, but somebody had a conversation with me. And in the conversation, it went to a joke about a famous person and his son being hooked on drugs. And it made a joke about it. But as soon as he made the joke, I go, oh, that's someone's son. That's parents who are brokenhearted because their son is an addict like that. And it's easy for us to make a joke rather than just have compassion on people, other people. We will know that we're in sync with God. We will know that we're walking in the Spirit when we feel for people the way God feels for people. When we look at them and we have compassion. And if you don't, you got something to work on. You got an attitude to change. See, sin breaks God's heart. Why does sin break God's heart? Because sin breaks people. That's why. And when we see people who are broken, because sin has come into our life, the easiest thing for us to do is to make a joke about it, to turn away, anything rather than feel compassion. So which one are you in a story? Just curiosity, because I looked through that story, those parables, and I think I've been about everyone in there. Which one are you? Or are you the sheep? You know, your own stupidity, you've gotten lost. Are you the coin? The circumstances of life have gotten you away from God. Or are you the son? You deliberately rebelled. And you say, God, I'm just not going to do this. Or are you the older brother? I think most of us, most of the time, live in that category. We just look down on other people's lives, and it's more of a judgmental thing. We look down on our lives and wonder how come they're not as buttoned up as we are. And there's no joy in being with the Father. And certainly, we don't have in our mind other people the way the Father does. We look down on them. But you remember what Jesus said whenever you would take that judgmental log out of your own eye? Remember what he promised would happen? When you took that judgmental log out of your eye, what are you going to do? He says, then you will be able to see clearly. See clearly what? See clearly that people are complicated, multifaceted. You want to make it about something that they're doing? You don't even know their story. If you listen to their story, you discover, oh, look what they were exposed to. Look at how they were raised. No wonder they're into that. No wonder that's happening in their life. Makes sense now. See, we want to point to a behavior. But when you know people's stories, because God knows everybody's story, doesn't he? When you know people's stories, then you won't see a behavior. You won't be going, oh, those people. We're all those people to God. At one time, we were all those people. You won't be going, those people. You won't be seeing a behavior. You will be seeing a person, and then you'll have compassion. And we need to pray. God, take that log out of my eye so I don't, oh, look what they're doing. Look what they're doing. Look what's happening in their life. When I don't stop seeing a behavior, when I start seeing people who are away from God and become very compassionate. The third thing, real quick, you must, well, that's what we just went over that part. No one is so lost that grace can't find them. Okay? Here's what we read in Peter. The Lord does not delay his promise as some understand delay, but is patient with you, not wanting any to perish, but all come to repentance. Nobody is out of reach for God's grace. Nobody. God gives up on no one. That guy that Jeremy was talking about in his video, man, he made his money doing stuff that would make you emotionally throw up almost. The people who you consider the scum of the earth, he had his hand in a whole lot of different, there wasn't much he hadn't done. But if you're going to learn to change the world the way Jesus did, to have a one, you're going to realize everybody you look on, everybody you see is so valuable to God. He gave his son to die for them. You're going to have to be able to look at them and look at them with compassion, and you're going to have to realize no one's beyond God's grace. No one. So, recap. 3 things. What are those 3 things? I got to look and see what the 3 things are. Number 1, people are lost and of great value to God. Number 2, God has a passion for finding people and wants to connect to them. And number 3, how do you know someone is connected to God? When they have a compassion for people who aren't connected to God. Here's our foundation. We know this scripture. Go therefore, make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe everything I have commanded you. And remember, I am with you always to the end of the age. Where does discipling start? It begins when you get a one. So you're not going to go and disciple thousands of people at one time, are you? But you can make a difference in somebody's life this week. You can have a one. And we've lost sight of that. We've lost sight of the ability to change the world the way Jesus did, one person at a time. Because we're not looking for them. God is. God's working in their life, but we're not looking for them. See, if we lose sight of what we're intended to do as a church, we failed. If Apple suddenly becomes deficient at making computers, so what if it has good-looking stores? It fails as a company. It loses sight of what it's basically called to do. It loses its whole reason for existence. If Starbucks starts making inferior coffee, so what if they have great employee relations and treat their employees great? They just done away with their whole reason for existence. And if we lose sight of looking for the one, like Jesus did, and focusing in on them, we no longer look at people like they're valuable. We no longer have compassion. We don't believe that God's grace can change anyone. I'll tell you what, those things are taking over our Christian culture. So of course we're not looking around for anybody. It's, those people. And so what are we going to do? We see those people, we get angry. But no, on Jesus' day, why do you spend so much time, Jesus, with those people? Because they're valuable to God. Because when I see them, I don't see a behavior. I see people and I have compassion for them. And I believe God's grace can change anybody. So, who are you? Maybe you'd just come and say, okay, I'm like the stupid sheep or a coin or the prodigal son. I've walked away from God and I don't care who knows. I'm coming back to God today. I don't care what embarrassment it may be. I'm coming back to God today. Maybe you're like the older brother and you need to get rid of that judgmental log out of your eyes so you can start seeing clearly and understand the mission God has given to us. So here's what I want you to do. 2 levels here. Number 1, I want you to pray that as you go through your day, God, open my eyes to see the one. Do you have a one for me today? It's like what Jeremy said. He's just going through his day and there's a Bible sitting there. And all of a sudden, within a couple minutes, there's the one. Become focused on him. On the other level, I want you to say, God, who's the one? Is it a relative of mine? Is it a friend of mine? Is it a workmate of mine? Somebody who every day you can pray for. Every day you pray for them. You pray for God to work in their heart. You pray for God to work in your heart. I want you to have a one on a level that this is somebody who every day you're going to pray for, say, that's my one. But I also want you to have this on the level that to be looking around as you're going throughout the day. Because you never know. We've been sitting at restaurants and a server come up and have a conversation with the server. And pretty soon we go back there and have another conversation. Pretty soon they're coming to church. That's a one. We pass by and we go, let's stop by the IHOP and see if she's working there tonight. We could drive by and see if her car was there tonight. And we could stop and continue to focus on the one. So I want you to have one that you just choose to know, hey, this is my relative, my friend, my coworker, whatever it may be. And they're going to be my one on that level, but on another level that you will go through the day with your eyes open. God, who can be the one? Now, for that to happen, you're going to have to realize everybody's valuable to God. Everybody you lay eyes upon. is so valuable to him that he sent his son to die for them. And you're going to have to look at them and look at them with compassion. Don't be focusing on what they've done. Look at the person, because you don't know their story. You don't know how they were raised, what they brought up, what led to that. You have no clue. Don't be focusing on the behavior. Focus on the person. And then you have to believe nobody is outside of God's grace. If you'd have heard Steve's story before he would have became a Christian, ooh, those people. We just ought to take those people out and hang them, just get rid of them, ship them off somewhere, put them in jail for what all they've done. That's exactly the people God came for. And guess what? You were those people. Every one of you. To some extent, you were those people as far as God was concerned. Right? Okay. So we're going to give an invitation. You may want to come down front and say, God, right now, that's me. I've lost compassion. I've lost any idea that those people are precious to you. And I need you to take that judgmental log out of my eye today. And I need to start seeing people clearly. Lord, I want to be focusing this week on who's my one. I want to find the one that I can just focus on for the next maybe 6 months, maybe for the rest of your life. Someone you can focus on. But also the daily be looking around for who's your one. Maybe you need to come and say, prodigal son, sheep, coin, that was me. I'm lost. And I don't care what else is going on. All that's faded away, and I just want to come to Jesus because he's the only one that can do something for me. I need to come and experience that salvation power inside of my life and have him come do for me what only he can do. Nowhere else you can go for this. No place else. Only he can do that. And you're ready to give your life to him and make that decision to become a Christ follower. However God is speaking to you today, I hope you respond. Let's stand together.